Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode a bunch of behaviors that, on the surface, seem kind of strange, but they actually reveal a really powerful psychological profile that might just feel, well, super familiar. We're going to connect the dots between habits that look totally random from the outside, but are actually driven by this incredibly consistent internal logic.
All right, let's start with a bit of a puzzle. We're going to look at a profile of someone whose habits often seem to completely contradict each other. But as you're about to see, they all point to one single coherent pattern. So, think for a second. Do you know someone like this? Maybe it's a coworker, a friend. Hey, maybe it's even you. I'm talking about someone who seems like a walking contradiction, Someone whose habits just don't seem to add up. What's so fascinating here is how these traits seem to totally clash. I mean, their desk might be a complete disaster zone, but their computer files are organized to perfection. Or they might cry during a sad movie, but in a real crisis, they are the calmest person in the room. They're super quiet in a group, but get them one-on-one talking about something they love, and they'll talk for hours. I mean, how can one person be all of these things at once?
Well, it turns out this isn't random at all. Psychology shows us that these aren't just a bunch of disconnected personality traits. No, they're clues. They're all clues pointing to a single underlying psychological framework. It's the consistent output of a very specific type of mind.
So what's the operating system that's driving all these traits? How do all these contradictions suddenly make perfect sense? The answer, it turns out, lies in one powerful core idea.
We're calling it the internal compass. And here's the crucial point. It's a mindset that prioritizes its own internal signals over all the external noise. Your motivation, your sense of self-worth, your big decisions, they all come from your own personal standards, not from what's popular or what other people think you should do.
And this chart just illustrates the difference perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the person guided by that internal compass. They're driven by their own standards, they're looking for depth and meaning. Then on the right, you have the external compass. This is a person who relies on social feedback, likes, approval, what's trending, to figure out how to navigate the world. One values function, the other values image.
So let's dig a little deeper now into how this internal compass actually shapes the way someone thinks. Because this internal guidance system, it fundamentally changes how they process the world around them.
First off, people with a strong internal compass, they don't just accept ideas because everyone else does. In fact, they can't. An idea has to make logical sense to them. And this isn't about being difficult or argumentative. It's about a deep, genuine need for things to be coherent.
I love this quote because it makes such a key distinction. The questioning isn't some form of rebellion. It's literally how they process information. Their mind is wired to find internal consistency, not just to go along with the social consensus.
This mindset also means they tend to favor depth over speed. So instead of reacting instantly to things, there's this natural tendency to pause, to analyze, and to really reflect. It leads to a much more deliberate and, honestly, strategic way of thinking. Most of us spend our days operating on System 1. That's our fast, intuitive, automatic reactions. But being able to consciously use System 2, that slower, more analytical kind of thinking, that is a hallmark of really high cognitive control. It's about creating a little bit of space, a mental gap, between a feeling and an action. Now, as you can probably imagine, having this kind of internal guidance system profoundly shapes how you navigate your social world, and it explains a lot of behaviors that often get misunderstood as being, antisocial. What looks like antisocial behavior from the outside is actually a very deliberate strategy. See, they're not really avoiding people. They're avoiding the mental drain that comes from surface-level interactions. They prefer being alone because that's where they can recharge and think clearly. They don't really care about trends or social media because they just aren't looking for that external validation. It's all about protecting their mental energy for what truly matters to them.
And this internal focus gives them something else, something really powerful. It's a natural defense against manipulative or toxic people. It's almost like having a built-in psychological immune system.
And here's why this is so effective. Toxic people, they thrive on getting a big emotional reaction from you and making you constantly justify yourself. But someone with an internal compass doesn't need that external approval. So they don't over-explain. They don't give the emotional drama that's being looked for. They just set a calm, clear, consistent boundary. Because their own self-worth isn't on the line, they can simply detach.
Okay, so let's circle all the way back to where we started.
let's look at those initial contradictions again. But this time, let's reframe them, not as weaknesses, but as signs of incredible, often totally misunderstood, strength.
So, the person who cries easily, they're not fragile. They have incredibly high emotional awareness. Their brain is just processing emotion honestly. That person who's quiet under pressure, that's not them being cold. That's elite mental control, that cognitive inhibition we talked about. The messy desk isn't chaos. It's selective organization. Their energy is focused only on what truly matters to them. And preferring to be alone isn't about being lonely. It's a strategy to protect their mental energy.
So the crucial point here is that this emotional depth and this mental quiet, they're not opposites. They're actually two sides of the very same coin. They both come from this rich, self-aware inner world that processes things deeply and honestly without any need for an external performance.
So what we see in the end is that these aren't just disconnected, weird traits at all. They are all the logical, consistent expressions of a mind that's guided from within. They actually form a really coherent and powerful psychological profile.
And all of this leaves us with one final thought to consider. In a world that is constantly pushing us to look outward for validation, for trends, for opinions, it's really worth asking yourself, where does your compass truly point? Is it guided by all the noise outside, or by that quiet